Okay, so here we go. So the first thing I want to do is, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of Mentimeter. You probably have. But this is going to be a cute little activity. So let me click on this link here. I'm going to ask everybody to get their phones out, or you can use your computer, whatever's easier for you. I think for me, it would be phone. And this is what I'm going to ask you to do. So if you can go to www.menti.com and enter, it'll ask for a code. And if you can put that code in, 40250084. And then if you will enter what word or...
Could you say that all again, please?
Yes, hopefully you can see it here on the slide, but the code, if you can go to...
We cannot see it.
No.
Oh, you can't see it?
No.
That's interesting. Why can't you see it? Let me try that one more time. Can you see that?
Yes.
Yes.
I wonder why it didn't work the last time. Okay, great. Thank you for speaking up. So if you can go to www.menti.com and use this code 40250084. And it's going to ask you, what word or phrase do you think of when you hear the phrase growth mindset? And I'm going to ask you to enter in 3 answers. What do you think of when you hear the phrase growth mindset?
The code one more time.
Sure. 40250084. 40250084. And you will see we are going to have a word cloud appear. The bigger the word, that means more folks are saying that word. So learning, a lot of you are saying learning. I'm going to ask everybody if you can mute your microphones. That would be very helpful. So we can see this developing. Can everyone see this? Good. Perseverance, growing, open-minded, flexible, grit, change, development, flexibility again. Not yet. Good. Progress, journey, I like that one. These are great answers. Powering through. Okay, so this is pretty much what all of us think of when we think of growth mindset. And obviously what stands out: development, perseverance, learning, growing, grit, open-minded. Of course, that was probably from our prayer too. That might have made some of you think of that. So this is just kind of a little exercise that you could do with your students when you're starting to talk about growth mindset, to see where they are with their understanding with growth mindset. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So what I'm going to ask you to do, I am hoping that you received handouts with your notes, with the Zoom link. And one of those handouts was a staff mindset quiz. So I'm going to ask you to either pull that up, or if you printed them out, if you could find that. It's just called the staff mindset quiz. And I can always exit out of here too and pull that up for everyone. But I'm going to ask you to take a minute or two and just go through this, and we're just going to assess your mindsets. So you just read the statement and then just check if you strongly agree, disagree, or strongly disagree. Everyone understand? Okay. So go ahead and.
Could you pull it up? I didn't make copy.
Yes, I
Yeah,
will
I
pull
don't
it
have
up.
it either.
Yep, let me pull
Thanks.
it up here. Yep. Give me a minute and I'll pull it up and share my screen. Okay. Computer's working extra slow here. There we go. Okay, I have it here. Let me. Share screen again. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Okay. Let me see if I can zoom it in a little more. Can you guys mute your microphones, please? Hi. Somebody's on the phone. Can you mute your microphone? I don't know how to zoom in. Can anybody tell me how to zoom in? Just want to make it bigger for you.
It should be in the lower right of your screen on Microsoft Word.
Lower right?
Bottom right, there should be a zoom option. Just a percentage.
Oh, I see it. No, I don't. Lower right.
Where the line and the bar is, you can move the
Oh.
bar right.
It's here. Oh, thank you. That's probably something everybody knows but me. Now I just have to get it just right. That help a little bit?
Yes.
Okay, I'll just give you maybe a minute to finish that up. I realize that probably only those of you that have a hard copy are probably doing this, but that's okay. You can always pull this up later and do it. Okay, I'm just going to give you about 20 seconds left. Now, I have a mindset quiz just like this for students also that I sent along with the notes. So hopefully you received that, and that's something you can use with the students. It's not identical to this, but okay, in the interest of time, I'm going to keep going here. So now what you do is you take and you add up your answers. So for the first question, if you were strongly agree, you get 0, agree 1, disagree 2, strongly disagree 3, and you continue through and add up your points, whatever you want to call them. I call them points. And then on the bottom, it will tell you what type of mindset you have, wherever your total points falls in. And I just think it's helpful for you to know exactly where you lie. Now, you know, if you find that you're maybe fixed mindset with some growth ideas, then, you know, I'm thrilled that you're here at this presentation, and maybe this will help you be a little more open-minded. If you're already a strong growth mindset, that's wonderful, you know, keep it up. And again, it probably depends on the area of your life. You might have a strong growth mindset maybe in your personal life, maybe not so much in your professional life, or vice versa, or you know, you never know. Just because it appears in your professional life doesn't mean it's like that in your personal life. So that's just something for you to reflect on personally, where you fall. You know, some of you might find this to be an eye-opener, where you think that you have a growth mindset and maybe it turns out not so much. So hopefully you'll find this little exercise helpful. And we're not going to focus on you today, I promise. It is going to be about the students, but I just thought it would be nice for all of you to think about this. Okay, where are we at? Do you guys need more time? Give me a thumbs up if you need more time, for those of you that I at least can see. Nope, looks like we're good. Okay, then we're going to move on. Like I said, if you didn't finish that, you can always go back and, okay, I'm going to stop my share here again. And then start my share back into the PowerPoint. Okay. Can everybody see the PowerPoint again? Okay, great. Thanks, Bob. Okay. And now it's not advancing for me. Oh, sometimes I hate technology. Let me share again. Oh. It is not letting me advance. Now I've done this a million times. Why is it being difficult? Escape that. Okay, let's try this. I'm going to go into this one and see if that works. Okay. So there are two types of mindsets. Can everybody see that slide? Okay. Obviously, there's the fixed mindset and the growth mindset. The fixed mindset is a mindset that you are just born with a certain amount of intelligence. And no matter what you do in life, it's not going to change that. So you might be really good at swimming. And no matter how hard you practice, you're not going to get any better. You're as good as you're going to get. You might be one of those people that find math very easy. And again, it's the same kind of thing. No matter how much work you put into improving your math ability, it's not going to make a difference. You're not going to get any better. So you have this fixed amount of intelligence and ability. The growth mindset, on the other hand, is quite different, obviously. You have this belief that, you know, here you are right now, but if you put in the effort, practice, perseverance, you can grow, you can learn. And there's a whole different, and we'll get into some of the different beliefs of the different mindsets, but the idea is that, you know, you're not worried about if you're not good in something because you feel that you can improve in that area. Okay. And obviously, this is where we want our students to be, to think that they can improve in all of the academic areas. So let's look at some specific things. So folks with a fixed mindset, they always want to look smart to other people. That's their biggest desire. Whereas growth mindset people, they're not really worried about how smart they are because they have the belief that they can learn. So the main component for growth mindset folks is they have this desire to learn. So let's look at giving up easily. Fixed mindset people tend to give up easily because they don't want other people to see them struggle because they want to appear smart. Whereas folks with a growth mindset, you know, they will not give up. They will fight, and, you know, try to persevere. So they persist in the face of setbacks. Failures. Fixed mindset people, failures are terrible because, again, it gives the appearance that they're not smart. Whereas for growth mindset, they actually see failures as productive. You know, I'm going to need to fail sometimes for growth. So it's a totally different mindset. Fixed mindset folks tend to ignore useful negative feedback because they don't like that negative feedback because, again, they don't look smart. Whereas growth mindset people, they want to learn from that feedback so that they can grow. So they're okay with criticism, constructive criticism. Fixed mindset people, they're threatened by the success of others. I think we know why. Growth mindset people, they find other people that are success stories inspirations. And they try to find different lessons that they can learn from those people. Challenges, obviously, fixed mindset people avoid challenges because they don't want to look not smart. Growth mindset, they embrace those challenges because that's where the growth is going to occur. If anybody has comments or questions, please feel free to jump in anytime. In the course of a day, you as teacher or your students, you can have different mindsets, and it kind of just depends on the particular situation. For example, me with losing weight, I had this fixed mindset that no matter what I could do, I wasn't going to lose weight. But I actually did lose some weight during this last half of the year. So now I'm kind of shifting to a growth mindset as far as losing weight. Learning a new language. Some people think, oh, I cannot learn Spanish. But other folks embrace it and they think that they can. So it just depends on the area that it is. And we should always be intentional about employing our growth mindset. If we start to hear ourselves talk like we're operating in a fixed mindset, we need to try to shift that to a growth mindset. Now, these are some things I'm sure that you've heard, you know, talking to other teachers, maybe in the faculty lounge or who knows where. But I definitely wanted to kind of just point this out to you. You know, like let's say the very first one, you know, and it's funny because I think back when I was a principal, I thought this all the time. The professional development was so boring. I never learned anything at those things. And it's unfortunate that I felt that way, but I think there were a lot of us that kind of felt that way. And that's why I applied for this job, because I wanted to turn the professional development around for principals, because I truly felt that it wasn't beneficial. So, you know, I did have that fixed mindset. I hope now that our principals don't have that mindset and that they find the professional development that we are giving to be beneficial. But anyway, you know, how many times do you hear teachers complain about parents? And believe me, I get it. I did it as a principal. But rather than thinking about the negative and how this parent's driving me crazy, think about how can we find a way to communicate with that parent to help that student. You know, you have some ideas that students are incapable of making gains in math. Well, switch it. What can I do to help that student understand? So those are just a few. I'm not going to read through everyone. There's just a few more here. I hear all the time where teachers will complain about their students and how they ruined a lesson. They were talking too much, or they just didn't listen to directions. And rather than focusing on the students, they need to shift it back to them. Like, what did I do? Or what could I have done differently to change the outcome of that lesson so that for the next time I learn and can do it better? We hear a lot of times about students' behavior and teachers making excuse for behavior, which again, I'm hoping that, you know, we can switch it around to what can I do to help the student with their behavior. So you get the idea. Again, this focus is not on staff mindset, but I wanted to bring a few things up here since I did have all of you. Okay, so I know you've all seen this video. This is a wonderful video. I wanted to play this, just kind of fun. Oh, now why did it do that? Give me a second, I apologize. Here we go. Give me a thumbs up if you can hear it.
Charlie Brown, oh Charlie Brown. I can't.
Oh, because I clicked from current slide, it did that. Oh my goodness, I'm sorry you guys with all the technical difficulties.
Charlie Brown, oh Charlie Brown. I can't believe it. She must think I'm the most stupid person alive. Come on, Charlie Brown. I'll hold the ball and you kick it. Hold it? Ha! You'll pull it away and I'll land flat on my back and kill myself. But Charlie Brown, it's Thanksgiving. What's that got to do with anything? Why, one of the greatest traditions we have is the Thanksgiving Day football game. And the biggest, most important tradition of all is the kicking off of the football. Is that right? Absolutely. Come on, Charlie Brown. It's a big honor for you. If it's that important, a person should never turn down a big honor. Maybe I should do it. Besides, she wouldn't try to trick me on a traditional holiday. This time I'm gonna kick that football clear to the moon! Isn't it peculiar, Charlie Brown, how some traditions just slowly fade away?
Okay. Now, why do you think that that's a good video to show for growth mindset? Anyone out there?
Charlie Brown has hope. He has
That-
hope every time that it's gonna be a different result.
That's right. What else?
It was almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. He said he couldn't, what Lucy was going to do to him, and she did.
You know, that's interesting. I never thought about that, but you're right. What else?
He tried to psych himself up before he knew that he was probably going to fail.
That's a good one. That's right. Sometimes our students, we have to help them psych themselves up. What else? He never gave up. No matter what, he never gave up. He was going to keep trying to kick that football.
Never give up.
That's right. Never give up. Okay. So employing growth mindset in our schools. Why is this so important? And I know I don't have to tell you this. I know you already know this. But we have to reframe everything in our school to be opportunities for growth instead of failure. We have to get students to embrace challenge and embrace failure and not worry about it, not worry if they don't get an A on everything. We have to make sure that they understand that the growth is important, that, with effort and time, they can achieve success in any realm. And, how many times do we hear teachers, at least I always, I wish I could get to the students to just, sometimes they'll ask, what do I have to do to get an A? It's about that almighty A. It's not about the work. It's not about the learning. It's not about the growth. And we need to get our students to shift from worrying about that grade to the work and to the growth. And we also have to get our parents somehow to shift, not worrying about the grade, but the growth. And I am going to incorporate parents into this somewhat too. But that is so true. It's almost like a whole culture shift we need to not worry so much about the grade. So, we do that. That's our main goal is why do we need growth mindset in schools right there? Increase student achievement and growth. So where do we begin? This is the book that I have used for this PowerPoint. And this book gives a month-by-month guide for a teacher to employ growth mindset into their classrooms. Now, I would love for schools to adopt this and do this school-wide, but I realize that, you're not here. Maybe it's something you might want to consider taking to your principal. At the very least, you can do it in your classroom. And it would even be wonderful if you have, several classes per grade, you did this grade level or by grade band, if you can get your other co-teachers, involved in this. So just some things to think about. At the very least, you can do this in your classroom, but it would be great if it extended out beyond into other parts of the school. So this is the book. If you are really serious about this, I highly suggest buying this book because I am going to refer to some things in the book, but it's an excellent book. It's a very quick read. I think you'll find it very beneficial. So we are going to start at the beginning of the year and talk about what you can do to roll out growth mindset. Okay. How are we, before we do that though, I want to take a quick break. How are you feeling? I'm hoping everyone is clear on the difference between fixed mindset and growth mindset. Are there any questions about anything we've talked about so far?
Sharon, it's so hard sometimes. I teach kindergarten, and even kindergartners come in with a fixed mindset. I
Yes.
could not tell you how many times the kids, I'll grade something, and sometimes I don't even take a grade and put it in option C. And they'll say, well, what did I get? Did I get them all right? Because I just need that A. We don't even do letter grades anymore. So it's so hard because they come in already looking to get that grade, and it doesn't matter how much they've learned. It drives me crazy, and it comes from the home. It comes
And
from,
I don't
you gotta
think you're
make
the only
sure-
one. Sorry, keep going.
No, it comes from the home. It's like, you got to make sure you do your very best, and it's not about growth. To the parents, it's about what's your final grade. And it drives me crazy. They're 5 and 6.
You're right. And that shows you what we're up against, that they come in like that. So this isn't something you're going to be able to do in a month. And that's why, you know, this is a whole year. And it's not even going to really happen in a year, to be honest with you. I think this just has to be one of those essential elements that are incorporated into our school that we have to address with all students, no matter what age. Yes, I totally understand what you're saying. And I bet everyone else sitting here feels the same way. Okay, so in August and September, when they first come into school, you're going to teach students about what is growth mindset. What's the difference between growth mindset and fixed mindset? And you're going to start to create a classroom environment, a climate of growth mindset. And like I said, if you can extend it to the rest of the school, wonderful. But at the very least, you can start in your classroom. So here are some things you're going to do. You're going to explain the difference between growth and fixed mindsets. You can give them examples. And I sent in your notes a little handout that you can use to distinguish between growth and fixed mindset. I also sent a self-assessment for your students where they can self-assess what their mindset is. And then you want to get everyone to start to learn that we're all in a different place in our life as far as learning. You know, just take math, for example. All of your students know different math concepts. And it doesn't matter at what point they're at what level they're at. They're all at different places. The importance is that we all grow. Wherever we are, we start, that's our benchmark, and then we grow from there. Okay, this is a video you can show to your students. This is probably more elementary. High school folks, you know, you might find it to be more elementary, but it's just a great video. I think high school kids would love it too. So let me play this for you. This is one of my favorite videos. It's a little bit longer, but I think you'll enjoy it. Can everybody see it? I laugh at that every time I see it. It's just so funny. Okay. Here is, so wait a minute, yeah, that's not starting yet. So that's a great video to show, again, never give up, but problem solving. If you can't figure out a problem one way, try another, try another, try another. Perseverance, don't give up. You know, grit. There's so much in that video that you could talk about. And like I said, it is kind of elementary, but it's just very comical. I think high school kids would like it too. Okay, here's another video. Any questions on that, comments?
What was the name of that?
Ormy the Pig. If you Google Ormy the Pig growth mindset, when we're playing this next video, I'll put the URL in the chat. Okay. So this next video, this would be more for older students, but I want to play some different, since, you know, we have younger teachers of primary, of teachers of high school. So this is Carol Dweck. Carol Dweck is one of the forerunners in this idea of growth mindset. Again, this would be a great book if you really want to pursue this. This is not Carol Dweck talking, but it's this guy talking about her book, so, and her ideas.
When I was young, I always felt like I was being judged. At the age of 7, I had developed a severe stutter, and I feared that I might not be as smart as the other kids in my class. In school, I had one all-consuming goal: don't look stupid. In my head, I'd always be thinking, what are the chances that I'm going to stutter and look stupid in this situation? If the chances were high, then I would do anything I could to avoid that situation. It wasn't until I read the book Mindset by Carol Dweck that I really understood my constant fear of judgment. In the book Mindset, author and renowned psychologist Carol Dweck explains that the constant fear of judgment and the need to avoid looking stupid stems from a core belief people have about themselves and everyone around them. That belief is, everyone has a set amount of intelligence. From that belief, the logic goes, if I only have a fixed amount of intelligence, and if I start making mistakes and look stupid doing something, then I must not have very much intelligence. Dweck calls this underlying belief a fixed mindset. If you have a fixed mindset, you essentially believe you've been dealt a hand of cards in the poker game of life, and you're stuck with those cards. If you happen to get good grades in school, and your parents praise you for it, then you might start to believe you've been dealt a royal flush. But as you get older and face competition in school, make mistakes on tests, and encounter challenging situations, you start fearing that the hand you've been dealt really isn't that good. To maintain the illusion that you're still smart and special and talented, you avoid doing anything that you might look bad at, and you simply lose interest and stop trying. Because if you show that you don't care and you're not really trying, then people can't really judge your full ability. Author Carol Dweck has seen this pattern emerge over and over again in her research. In one study, she gave 5th graders a group of puzzles to solve. Each of the puzzles was within their current puzzle-solving ability, and all the kids loved them. But when she increased the difficulty of the puzzles, the children who had been praised for their puzzle-solving ability and developed the belief that they were gifted showed a steep decline in interest and effort as the puzzles got harder. However, Dweck found that there was another group of children who didn't shy away from the puzzles once they got harder. When Carol asked them why, they said the puzzles were an opportunity for them to get smarter. These kids took the initiative and asked Carol Dweck if she could write down the names of some of the puzzles so their mom could buy more when they got home. These kids had what Carol Dweck calls a growth mindset. Growth mindset people don't believe talent and intelligence is a gift. They believe you have to work for it. A person with a growth mindset firmly believes that with the right strategy and enough effort and time, they can get better at anything. A growth mindset person believes they're always getting smarter, so they're less afraid of being labeled stupid. They know that even if they've been dealt a bad hand in the poker game of life, they can continue to draw more cards by putting in more effort and finding better strategies until they eventually have a great hand of cards. Now, this growth mindset seems inspiring. It seems cool to be able to grow our intelligence, but is it actually true? Well, 40 years ago, the answer would be no. Scientists at the time thought you could grow a little, but you were largely constrained by the default wiring of your brain. But recent science shows that they were mistaken. Based on other books I've read over the years, I've learned 3 amazing ways you can change your brain. Regardless of how old you are, you can physically grow your brain, you can speed up the circuits in your brain, and you can rewire your brain for increased performance and intelligence on specific tasks. Several years ago, before taxi drivers used GPS to get around, brain researchers took brain imaging scans of experienced London taxi drivers. Researchers noticed that the more time a London taxi driver had spent driving a taxi in London, the larger a region of the brain associated with spatial awareness and memory, the hippocampus, had become. It was apparent that the more demands the taxi drivers put on their brains, the more they had to navigate the challenging road system of London, the more neurons they were able to grow in an area of the brain that they needed to complete their job. But not all brain regions can expand in size. So, other brain regions just make circuits faster. This is done by the process of myelination. As I briefly touched on in my deep work book summary, when you focus intensely on a single subject for a period of time, you start forming white sheaths on your brain cells called myelin. This myelin acts like insulation on an electric circuit. A brain circuit with myelin can transmit information up to 10 times faster than a brain circuit without myelin. After you've added as much myelin as you can to brain cells, you can then increase the capacity of your brain by rewiring it so it activates neighboring brain regions to assist with certain tasks. You can think of this like rewiring a house, so that when you hit a switch to turn on one light, you actually turn on 2 or 3 additional lights nearby. One study showed that when a person practices guitar for hundreds of hours and uses their fingers in their left hand to play the different notes on the strings of the guitar, they light up regions of their brain associated with the left fingers, no surprise. But they also light up regions of the brain associated with the palm of the left hand. When researchers took brain scans of novice guitar players, only the fingers in the left hand were activated in the brain. It turns out that guitar players who had put in hundreds of hours of practice were able to activate more of their brain so they could play the guitar with more speed and accuracy. Now that I know that I can grow my brain's capacity, I think about challenges in a new way. Before I go into a challenge, I stop thinking, will I look smart or stupid while doing this? And start thinking, what can I learn? After a difficult challenge and a series of mistakes, I stop thinking, I'm not smart enough to do this, and start thinking, I'm not smart enough to do this yet. Now that I've changed my core belief to everyone can grow their cognitive abilities, I am less afraid of being stupid because I know I am continuously getting smarter. Even if I look stupid now, I won't look stupid very long if I apply enough effort and the right strategies. I now have the courage and confidence to go into challenging situations because those situations will allow me to upgrade my brain and learn the skills to overcome future challenges. That was the core message that I gathered from Mindset by author Carol Dweck. Reading this book will set you on the path to becoming an infinite learner. I highly recommend it. If you would like a one-page PDF summary of insights that I gathered from this book, just click the link below and I'll be happy to email it to you. If you already subscribe to the free Productivity Game email newsletter, then this PDF is sitting in your inbox. If you like this video, please
I'm talking away and then I realized I was, sorry about that. Okay, so that's pretty much August, September. I think that's self-explanatory. There are a bunch of videos out there that you could show to students on growth mindset. There's just a lot of different ways you can do it. So that's pretty much August, September. So I want to open it up to all of you. So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to stop my share here. And your camera's on. And I would like you to share maybe anything you've done in the past that would fit in perfectly in August and September. You know, maybe an activity you've done with your students, a video, And then while you're talking, I'm going to put this in the chat. I couldn't do it when that video was running, but I will put that URL here. So what are some things you guys have done just to talk about introduce growth mindset? Yes, just start talking. Karen, go ahead.
There's, for those of you who are math teachers, there is Bull, I can't recall her first name right off the hand. Bolin has a website that's called Math Cube or just Cubed, that she does growth mindset for math and things. And then Doodle Notes also does a lot with growth mindset, and they have Doodle Notes that you can use to do growth mindset.
Great.
For the upper levels.
Thank you.
My partner teacher and I, we teach second grade, and we use Class Dojo. Class Dojo has a whole set of mindset, and the kids love them. They ask us to play them again and again. So that's a really, Ellen and I found it was a really great resource because the kids enjoy it and they really do get something out of it. And we started from the first week of school.
That's great.
Found something on Teachers Pay Teachers that was kind of a icebreaker for the beginning of school. I teach 7th and 8th grade history, and so it's famous figures in history, you know, some kind of pop culture as well, like, but you've got Albert Einstein, Thomas Edison, but then like Michael Jordan, and it talks about, it's kind of like a little stations activity where they just learn these people who have been elevated to these pedestals in history first failed, you know, and they didn't give up, and they kept going, and they became the people that we know today, but they weren't always that way. They had to work really hard to get there.
That's great. And then who are you? JW?
Jen Wademan.
Is that something you could share with me to share with the rest of them, or is that copyrighted for Teachers Pay Teachers?
I believe it's copyrighted.
Okay, okay. But that's good to know. You could go to Teachers Pay Teachers.
Yeah, and I mean, I found tons of stuff on there like for free as well. If you just look up growth mindset, there's been tons of activities and stuff, but that activity itself wouldn't be too hard to kind of develop on your own if you just research these people that have failed and talk to the kids about it.
Yeah, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what other ideas are out there?
I'm Katie Pettit. I'm from St. Gertrude. I teach social studies as well. And I usually start off my year with a lot of famous quotes. And we talk about the quotes, we analyze them, and then we talk about why the study of history is important for everybody, because a lot of them come in with the idea that social studies and history is really boring because, you know, they have the Bueller idea of what a history class is. And so making it engaging and fun is something that I really like doing with them.
Someone, if you're not talking, if you could mute your microphones, that would be wonderful. Thank you. Okay, other ideas?
I don't have anything specific, but I do see a parallel with just science in general, that a lot of students want to think that science is fixed, and it's not. All through, you know, history, talking about Albert Einstein and things, that it's very much scientists have a growth mindset, and that it is something that's growing. Just because we've figured things out in the past doesn't mean that we always knew it, and that it is always growing. So I don't have anything specific I do, but I do think teaching science, this is really important to impart this idea that it's not fixed and that we are all still figuring it out.
Yeah, that whole idea of labs and experimenting and, you know, everything with science fits right into growth mindset. We're all learning continually. Great, thanks. Anyone else? Book you've read to the kids? which I do have an example of some books later, but
I was going to say, like, it's kind of tied into it, but I usually with my sixth graders, I teach junior high math. And I always kind of talk in the beginning of the year about multiple intelligences. And I have them do kind of like a survey, and then we make a bar graph out of the results to kind of tie in the math. But just showing them, like, out of the however many 6 or 7 different multiple intelligences, how, you may be stronger in certain areas, but, typically everybody we all have the intelligences, and how we can develop those, and just, how that can help with their learning too, to kind of know what they're strong at, what they maybe this isn't the way to word it, but not as strong at, but that it's still there though, and you can develop those skills throughout the year and throughout their learning.
great. Thank you.
I also have a book. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. You're fine, Julie. Go ahead.
Oh, thanks. There's a book called She Persisted by Chelsea Clinton, and it is amazing. I read it to my kindergartners, and it's a book about, I think, 13 girls that changed something. And there's another book called She Persisted Around the World, and it's about women who, like, Ruby Bridges is in there, Oprah Winfrey's in there, and it's an amazing book. And my kids are enthralled, even 5 and 6 year olds, because it shows them where they started from, whoever this woman is, and how she persisted and she got to Oprah Winfrey level or something like that. It is an amazing, amazing book. Highly recommend it.
Great. Thank you.
We use Ready Math, and it really has growth mindset built in. So it introduces a problem of the day, and I teach 2nd grade with my partner teacher, and you introduce the problem of the day, and then you don't tell the students at all how to solve it. They just have time to work on it on their own. And then you do pair share, where they share their strategies, and you celebrate the different ways you can come up with solving a problem. It's amazing how at the beginning of the year, they're scared to death to try, and you see a lot of hesitation. And then as the year goes on, they're asking each other questions when they get to the pair share. Well, why did you do it that way? It's just really amazing. And we've seen it carry over into all the other subject areas where they don't give up right away. They're willing to try, and they know that mistakes are okay. And we even celebrate mistakes and the oopses that happen, and they think that's amazing. So the changes that can happen when we build this in are just awesome.
That's great. So it just kind of evolved.
Yes.
That's great.
So I use a journaling for my kids. Now I teach post-secondary. I'm the intervention specialist. So I teach a group of kids that have deferred their diplomas, that they stay for career readiness. So I really teach way different than everybody else does. But one of the things I've noticed is that by the time my kids get to me, they have extremely fixed mindsets. I mean, you're talking about special ed kids. So we already have to deal with a fixed mindset there, because they've been told basically since elementary school, oh, well, you can't. So by the time they get to me, they just believe that they legitimately can't. I mean, it's just so hardwired into their DNA that it's ridiculous. And so I start the year off with a journaling exercise. I'm the intervention specialist on record, but the class I teach is English. So I cover all career-related aspects of English. So writing emails, reading recipes, that kind of stuff. And one of the things that I do is we work through this journal exercise, totally independent, lots of visuals, and we break down the language piece, and it has a comparison to a famous person for the end of the week, usually with a quote, something that they said. Well, what does that mean to you? And they work through all of these pieces as they join together using that language piece. So it bolsters both skills. But one of the things I've noticed is that by the end of the year, once they've worked through all this, they start to use some of those quotes in their own reasoning for things. And I'm like, sometimes it's just exposure. Sometimes they just have to be exposed to a flexible mindset, not even necessarily just growth, but just a flexibility idea that you could, maybe it is possible, because so many of them are exposed to just, well, you can't.
Right. That's great. Okay, we have time for one more. Maybe one of our high school folks. Anybody in high school have something to share? Do you guys do a lot of growth mindset in high school?
This actually came from a PD we did as a faculty first for growth mindset, but I started a couple of years ago. I started the year with an exercise where I gave teams of kids a certain number of, I think it was 20 sticks of spaghetti and some marshmallows. And it's actually from a TED talk about growth mindset as well. He talks through doing this exercise with kindergartners versus like architecture students. And the goal is that, I'm trying to remember now, I think it's just to build the tallest structure you can that will stand on its own using just the spaghetti and the marshmallows. And there's some yarn involved too. I don't remember all the details and the specifics now. But it shows that there are lots of different ways to do it, and you can keep trying because you have 20 minutes to do it. And it's not that once you've got a structure built, you're done. It's you can keep trying for 20 minutes to make yours taller than everybody else's. And I wish I could remember anything specific about it to point anyone in that direction now. But it was really entertaining to watch as the teacher, first of all, and just walk around the room and see what everyone was doing. But it also did show that there's no one right way to do this. And as an English teacher, a high school English teacher, there's usually never one right way to do things in an English class or one right answer. So that kind of helped not only force the kids to work together on the first couple days of school, but also to kind of reinforce some of these ideas.
I think that's a great activity to do with students to demonstrate growth mindset. Thank you. Thank you, Katie. Okay, we're going to jump back into this a little bit. I promise I will give you a break, so hang in there a few more minutes. Okay. So October, this is where you can start to teach the students about neuroplasticity. And you can start to use some of these brain-based strategies in your classroom. Oh no, here I go again. I can't forward my slideshow. Oh goodness. Let's see here. I think I have to go out here and I have to escape out of my slideshow. Okay. I should probably stop screen share, or keep continuing to screen share. I wouldn't have this problem. Okay, here we go. Try this. Okay, can everybody see October? Great. Okay. So neuroplasticity. So the idea of neuroplasticity is that the brain can grow and change in different ways. Okay. And these are just some examples. The one with the London cab drivers was on that video that we watched about how the hippocampi grew when they memorized all those streets. You know, we all have heard stories of like, you know, and actually we have someone here for the School for the Deaf, but deaf people's brains kind of tend to rewire themselves. And so their senses of vision and touch are very much more accurate just because of the brain rewiring. This last one here, there was a 4-year-old that had half her brain removed, but the brain rewired itself. And so it's like she had a whole brain. She was indistinguishable from her classmates. So I think, you know, with what's going on in the medical field and with brain study, I think it's just, it's mind-blowing of what can happen, you know? So, and this is what we need to make sure that our students are aware of, you know, the power of the brain. So, you know, when you learn something, the idea is that you're creating a new pathway in your brain, and that's neuroplasticity. So I want to read for you this example, and it just really demonstrates, this is in the book, but it really demonstrates this idea of creating the new pathway. It's just a short little example here. So pretend that you live in a wooded area and each day you walk from your house down to a stream. Over time, you have created a well-worn path through the woods from your house to the stream. Like this path, skills, knowledge, and habits that you often use are well-worn paths in your brain. You can easily do these things because the neuronal pathways are constantly used. But when you learn something new, you have to develop a new path. So go back to the house in the woods for a moment. Let's say one day you spot a lovely meadow off the path. You decide that you'd like to get to it, but there's no clear way to get there. So you trudge through the brush, moving rocks, ducking limbs, and tripping on obstacles. You get there eventually, but it wasn't easy. It'll take time to wear a new path to the meadow as smooth as the path to the stream. When you learn something new, you're creating a new path in your brain. This is neuroplasticity. Anyone can make a new path, anyone, but it's hard work. And just like a path in the woods, if you don't use the new paths in your brain often, they'll grow over and become difficult to navigate once again. That's why people sometimes say, use it or lose it. So that's kind of like when you learn a language, and if you don't continue to use it, you do lose it. So that's just a great example for students if you talk about a pathway in the forest to help them understand that. But hopefully once students learn about this plasticity, just like the guy in the video said, they'll tend to think that, you know, that they're not stupid or that they can't do something. You know, there's some other lesson plans in here. There's a lesson plan on how you can teach students about different parts of the brain. Obviously, you don't need this book for that, but you can talk about the different parts of the brain. There's a lesson plan for that. There's a lesson plan for brain plasticity in here that you can use. So like I said, if you are really thinking about embracing this growth mindset, I strongly encourage you to buy this book. Now I'm going to, let's see. I think I'm going to just start this. I'm not going to show the whole thing, but just to give you an idea. This is pretty high up there. So this would probably be more for our junior high, high school students. Uh-oh, wait a minute. I keep pausing. I keep thinking it's not working, so I keep clicking. Here we go.
Hi, it's Paul Anderson, and in this video I'm going to go over the basics of the neuron. The neuron is the basic unit in the nervous system. In a simple animal like a nematode worm, they only have 302 neurons, but what they allow them to do is to take information in from their surroundings and respond to that information. If you look at how those 302 neurons are connected, it's very complex. Now, humans are quite a bit bigger, and we have 100 billion neurons in our body. Most of those are centered in the central nervous system, in the brain, and the spinal cord, but the basic unit of our nervous system is the same. It's the neuron. If we look at the neuron anatomy and remove all the other neurons, the center is going to be what's called the cell body. This is a typical cell. It's a metabolizing cell. It's taking in energy. It's using that energy, and so it's going to have a nucleus. It's going to have Golgi apparatus, mitochondria. It's a typical cell, but there are extensions of those cell bodies called the dendrites. Those dendrites are connected to other neurons, and they're taking information in the form of neurotransmitters. In fact, this whole side of the neuron is receiving information. We then have the axon. The axon is where we're transmitting information. It begins at the axon hillock and is going to move to the terminals. Now remember that the terminals, there's a synapse that connects us to other neurons. But the signal is... Now we're taking in information. Well, so there's going to be another neuron that's connected to both the cell body and the dendrites of that cell. But there's going to be a gap between these two, and we call that a synapse. It's a connection between neurons. Again, I have another video on the synapse if you want to dig into the specifics, especially of how chemical synapses work. Neurons are classified in two ways. First way is due to their structural classification. So if we take very rare, they information from the receptors in our eye, receptors in our nose. If we look at the next one, here's the cell body. You can see general ones that you're going to find in a typical anatomy class. Now, neurons can also be classified according to their functional classification, those that take in information, stimulus coming in from our environment, and then the response that we have. So if we kind of move that to the central nervous system, we're looking at a cross section of the spine. So we're taking information in from receptors. So these could be in the skin, for example, touch receptors, heat receptors, pain receptors. And so we have to transmit that information to the central nervous system. So those neurons that bring information in are...
Okay, you get the idea. It's but it goes into, taking information in, and it would
sometimes
be
referred to as sensory neurons or
sorry.
afferent neurons. You can...
It would be helpful for, like I said, our especially if you're a high school science teacher, this is right up your alley. Was there any teacher out there that understood that? Do we have any high school science teachers? Oh, we do. Okay, so you understood all that. So that's right up your alley. It's kind of over my head. But anyway, let me just read this really quick. Imagine how powerless, when I got to move the pictures here. Give me 1 second. Imagine how powerless students must feel at school if they've internalized the belief that there's nothing they can do to meaningfully change their intelligence. Once students understand that the brain is an ever-changing organ, they'll feel empowered to put in more effort and tackle new and difficult learning challenges because they'll finally understand it's hard work, not genetics, that dictate achievement. And isn't that the truth? I mean, in fact, we just had, I forget your name, I don't know, you talked about how you usually work with the kids that they come to you and they've kind of given up. And so I'm sure you know exactly what they're talking about here. So this is just a book that you could use preschool to grade 3, your fantastic elastic brain, that talks about, this idea of neuroplasticity and it doesn't talk about neuroplasticity, but the idea of growing your brain. So then once you teach all that, then the idea is that you start to employ more brain-based strategies into your classroom. Metacognition, which again, I feel like is one of those things that it's hard to find time to do all of this, but metacognition is thinking about learning. And so we really need to get students to start thinking about their learning and their thinking. And these are just some ideas of how you can do that. Try to pre-assess their background knowledge on a particular topic. And then you can use strategies like KWL charts, which I'm sure you probably all know what that is, but I do have an example. Anticipatory guides, I have an example of that. Thinking stems, maybe you can post thinking stems around your classroom. And then thinking sheets, where the thinking stems are actually printed on a worksheet. So here's just some examples. KWL chart, I bet a lot of you have used this. What do you know about a topic already? What do you want to know about it? And what did you learn about it after it's over? Anticipatory guides, where you ask questions before the learning or before the reading, and the students just kind of take an educated guess. And then you ask that same set of questions after the reading. This is just another anticipatory guide where, you have the statements down the left here, so I'll read one of these if I can. Harmonic emotion isn't found very often in everyday life. So before you learn about harmonic motion, you say if you agree or disagree. And then after you learn about harmonic motion, you say the page number if you were right, and then you just kind of reflect on it. These anticipatory guides are great for your students to really start thinking about what they're learning. Here's just some of those question stems I was talking about that you could use. And I know I'm going fast because I know you can pull up the PowerPoint here. And then just some more examples. Journaling, which the same person actually that talked about how the students feel. Journaling is a great way to get students to think about their learning, their thinking. It's important for teachers to model this metacognition. I will never forget when I was principal at one of my schools. I had a teacher that had, this was her strength. Like if she was up at the board, let's say solving math problems, she really verbalized to the students what she was thinking in her head so that they could understand and see what she was doing. She was outstanding in this area. Encouraging students to write notations. If you're reading a novel, writing notations in the margins, questions, thoughts, vocabulary, just any kind of reflecting on their learning. But obviously, to do all of this, you do have to create that risk-free environment. And so this whole idea of growth mindset is really important to incorporate so that your students feel comfortable with this. Okay, so it is almost break time, but before we do that, I'm gonna stop here for a minute and I'm gonna stop my share. And I just want to ask you, but before I do that, I'm going to ask you, so what are you thinking right now? What are you feeling right now? And what are you wondering right now? So think about that for a minute. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What are you wondering? If you want to jot down a few things, that's fine too. You don't have to. And then we're just going to share a little bit and then we'll take a break.
Based on what I've been hearing and looking at, this is something that I think that a lot of teachers at St. Gertrude that I've seen and observed that, and I'm sure a lot of us are doing this, depending upon our subject area, but these are all things that we kind of like, I mean, that we kind of do on a regular basis without thinking about it.
Great. That's wonderful. Kathy, I think you might be muted. Maybe, no, it doesn't look like you're muted. We're having trouble hearing you. Say something again.
I'm a music teacher.
Okay, there, we see you. We hear you.
Okay. All right. So I like these, but I only get these kids for 40 minutes a week. I mean, because, you know, a lot of kids, I can't do that. I'm not music. I can't do a recorder. I can't do a xylophone. I can't sing. I just can't. So figuring out how to be able to do these things and still get all my music stuff done would be my challenge, but I'd like to do it somehow.
And Kathy, that's why I said in the very beginning of the conversation, it would be great if this could be expanded school-wide so that the other teachers who do have more time can talk about this. And then when you are in music class, you can say now, you know, I know that you just, you know, you've learned about neuroplasticity. And so, you know, so then you can kind of incorporate some of that into your class. But you're right, unless it's kind of more of a school-wide or even at least grade band based, like maybe your K-3 hit on this hard and then you know that. And so then you can talk to your kids about that. But that's a great point. That's something you'd want to talk to your other colleagues about.
Okay.
But I think you could incorporate maybe a little bit here or there just very quickly.
Absolutely. I like to use positive phrases, and one I always use is, I love challenges. And I make them say that. I love challenges, because that's great. So hard.
That's great.
It's a challenge.
That's great. That's great. That is a good point. Okay, what else are you thinking, feeling, wondering?
I will chime in. So like I said before, I teach 7th and 8th grade social studies. I'm at St. James in White Oak, and we truly have like the junior high model. So all the teachers teach both grades, basically just one subject. And so we're a team of 6 teachers, and I'm just over here, like I'm super jazzed about all this, and I already just ordered the book on my phone. So I'm like ready to go, because we've talked about growth mindset a lot over the years, but never really like implemented it, you know. And obviously, like we do things that are growth mindset, but it truly needs to be something that you commit to and
Yes.
really drive home with the kids, because otherwise they're not going to hang on to it. But I'm just sitting here trying to brainstorm ways that, because it's one thing to do it in my classroom, but all 6 teachers see the same kids every single day. And so I need them to all be on board as well. And kind of how can I implement something throughout the subjects that will kind of stay the same and be consistent with the kids. So that's my little challenge right now.
Well, and we recorded this and we're going to send it to all of you. So maybe you could encourage them to watch it, and then maybe they'll be just as excited and on board as you are.
Hopefully.
Right. That's great. Thanks. Okay, one more. What are you thinking, feeling, or wondering? You're probably feeling, I wish you would just shut up so we could take our break. Is that what that's what you're thinking?
I was going to share, I'm in a building with older boys, high school, and I've definitely seen what you're talking about, where the boys that have gone for accelerated classes and such, I can see them shying away at some point, feeling like they've lost their confidence, or that they're more interested in not coming across as failing than they are willing to take a chance.
Right.
So I've seen that, and that struck me when you talked about it. And then the other thing I thought about with respect to the parental aspect and the family aspect is, if these children have older siblings, it is true that once you're at the high school level, it's all a big push for getting in the most difficult classes, getting the best scores, trying to achieve the best scores on the SAT, the ACT. So it is a huge focus. And if the parents are coming from that broader spectrum, it's probably going to be hard to push them off of that.
Diane, that's a great point. And something that I think about with our students that excel is it's harder for them to make a year's growth. And I feel like unless they are tackling some of these challenging, activities, or unless they're seeing some productive failure, I wonder, are they going to grow? Are they going to make that year's growth? So maybe that's a way to approach it with those students that are, so accelerated is, look, you're going to have to put in struggle, and we have, I have to challenge you. You have to put in struggle, or it has to be, what am I trying to say? You have to struggle to get to that growth. And so really just, reiterating that over and over to them, that if it's easy to them, they're probably not growing.
Right, exactly.
They're maintaining the status quo. Yeah. So yeah, that's hard. And then it's the next step with the parents. How do you make the parents understand that?
Right.
I'd like to think, I don't know if you do any parent PD sessions or anything, but bringing the parents in and just kind of doing a growth mindset. Like if you're an elementary teacher, maybe this is something your PTG could do, or PTO, or whatever your group is called, and have a parent information night about growth mindset. And, the importance of, it's not all about the A or B, it's about the growth and the struggle. And, you need to see your students struggling. And how do you help your students with homework if how they need to let them struggle and not do the homework for them? You can go on. But that would be a great way to maybe approach your PTO if your PTO does things like that. Okay. It is 10:30, so let's take a 10-minute break. You can turn your video off, or your video and your microphone off, or whatever, and we'll be back at 10:40.
F6 on that one. Oop.
Oh, oh, I leave the meeting. Shoo. Oh.
Okay, I have 10:40, so if you guys are out there, if you don't mind coming back. If you can turn your camera on just for a minute so I know when everybody's pretty much back. Okay, I see most of you. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and just jump right in here again. So we are up to November. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, can everybody see my PowerPoint again? Okay, great. Okay, so in November, the idea is that we're going to start to develop strategies for the students to feel that they're comfortable in this classroom, because as we last talked about, it's important for students to feel comfortable in the classroom if you're going to start to use some of those brain-based strategies, that metacognition. So I'll give you some ideas on how to do that. I did include kind of a little assessment for all of you if you want to take that. It's a real relationship self-assessment. Actually, it's not, it's for your students. So you give it to your students and they assess how comfortable they're feeling. And then you can kind of get a feel for the students and if they're comfortable with you in the classroom. Okay, this is a TED Talk that I really want to show here. It really kind of brings it all home about the relationship of a teacher with their students.
I have spent my entire life either at the schoolhouse, on the way to the schoolhouse, or talking about what happens in the schoolhouse. Both my parents were educators. My maternal grandparents were educators. And for the past 40 years, I've done the same thing. And so needless to say, over those years, I've had a chance to look at education reform from a lot of perspectives. Some of those reforms have been good, some of them have been not so good. And we know why kids drop out. We know why kids don't learn. It's either poverty, low attendance, negative peer influences. We know why. But one of the things that we never discuss, or we rarely discuss, is the value and importance of human connection. Relationships. James Comer says that no significant learning can occur without a significant relationship. George Washington Carver says all learning is understanding relationships. Everyone in this room has been affected by a teacher or an adult. For years, I have watched people teach. I have looked at the best and I've looked at some of the worst. A colleague said to me one time, they don't pay me to like the kids. They pay me to teach a lesson. The kids should learn it. I should teach it. They should learn it. Case closed. Well, I said to her, you know, kids don't learn from people they don't like. She said, that's just a bunch of hooey. And I said to her, well, your year is going to be long and arduous, dear. Needless to say, it was. Some people think that you can either have it in you to build a relationship or you don't. I think Stephen Covey had the right idea. He said you ought to just throw in a few simple things. like seeking first to understand as opposed to being understood. Simple things like apologizing. You ever thought about that? Tell a kid you're sorry, they're in shock. I taught a lesson once on ratios. I'm not real good with math, but I was working on it. And I got back and looked at that teacher edition. I taught the whole lesson wrong. So I came back to class the next day and I said, look, guys, I need to apologize. I taught the whole lesson wrong. I'm so sorry. I said, that's okay, Miss Pearson. You were so excited. We just let you go. I have had classes that were so low, so academically deficient that I cried. I wondered, how am I going to take this group in 9 months from where they are to where they need to be? And it was difficult. It was awfully hard. How do I raise the self-esteem of a child and his academic achievement at the same time? One year I came up with a bright idea. I told all my students, you were chosen to be in my class because I am the best teacher and you are the best students. They put us all together so we could show everybody else how to do it. One of the students said, really? I said, really? We have to show the other classes how to do it. So when we walk down the hall, people will notice us. So you can't make noise, you just have to strut. And I gave him a saying to say, I am somebody. I was somebody when I came. I'll be a better somebody when I leave. I am powerful and I am strong. I deserve the education that I get here. I have things to do, people to impress, and places to go. And they said, yeah. You say it long enough, it starts to be a part of you. And so, I gave a quiz, 20 questions. Student missed 18. I put a +2 on this paper and a big smiley face. He said, Miss Pearson, is this an F? I said, yes. He said, then why'd you put a smiley face? I said, because you on the roll. You got 2 right, you didn't miss them all. I said, and when we review this, won't you do better? He said, yes, ma'am, I can do better. You see, -18 sucks all the life out of you. +2 said, I ain't all bad. For years, I watched my mother take the time at recess to review, go on home visits in the afternoon, buy combs and brushes and peanut butter and crackers to put in her desk drawer for kids that needed to eat, and a washcloth and some soap for the kids who didn't smell so good. See, it's hard to teach kids who stink. And kids can be cruel. And so she kept those things in her desk, and years later, after she retired, I watched some of those same kids come through and say to her, you know, Miss Walker, you made a difference in my life. You made it work for me. You made me feel like I was somebody when I knew at the bottom I wasn't. And I want you to just see what I've become. And when my mama died 2 years ago at 92, there were so many former students at her funeral. It brought tears to my eyes, not because she was gone, but because she left a legacy of relationships that could never disappear. Can we stand to have more relationships? Absolutely. Will you like all your children? Of course not. And you know your toughest kids are never absent. Never. You won't like them all, and the tough ones show up for a reason. It's the connection, it's the relationships. And while you won't like them all, the key is they can never, ever know it. So teachers become great actors and great actresses, and we come to work when we don't feel like it, and we listen to policy that doesn't make sense, and we teach anyway. We teach anyway because that's what we do. Teaching and learning should bring joy. How powerful would our world be if we had kids who were not afraid to take risks, who were not afraid to think, and who had a champion? Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can possibly be. Is this job tough? You betcha. Oh God, you betcha. But it is not impossible. We can do this. We're educators. We're born to make a difference. Thank you so much.
What are your reactions to that? Any reactions out there?
I mean, my toughest kids were never absent, but it's pretty true.
I love it every time I see it.
Yeah. It really brings it all. I mean, it's true. I mean, your students have to respect you as a teacher. They have to think you're competent. They have to think you're credible. They have to trust you. And I'm doing another whole session on teacher credibility if you want to join that, and it gets more into that, but it is so true. So, you know, students need to know that the teacher has faith in their ability to achieve. The students have to respect the teacher, like the I don't know that I like the word like, but they have to respect the teacher. You know, they have to look up to the teacher. If a teacher provides feedback, hopefully they will accept it. There just has to be a good relationship there, really, for learning to occur. And I'm not going to go through these. What I would like to do is just kind of share some ideas. Does anybody have any relationship building strategies that you use with your students that you would highly recommend to others? Oh, I'm sure you all do things.
Greeting them at the door each morning really does help. And it just sets the stage for you're happy they're there. You're encouraging them that you want to hear about how are they doing today? You know, how are they feeling, and checking in, just a good way to start. And I always try to say, I'm so glad to see you today. I'm happy you're here.
Yes.
I just try to remember the small things about the students. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You know, if they tell me they have a soccer game over the weekend, I really make a mental note to ask them, you know, on Monday, how did your soccer game go? Or, you know, if they're going to have a little baby cousin born soon, I try to remember that and ask them, oh, what was the baby cousin's name? You know, boy or girl, and stuff like that. And I can tell that they think, wow, she really does care about me.
Right.
I try to get a lot of feedback from them, like, you know, not just a reflection on how their learning took place, but, you know, what they thought of the activity, what could have made it better, things like that. And I think that they've told me they really enjoy that I respect their opinions.
Right. Gives them ownership.
Yeah. I said,
I take a picture of each student at the beginning of the year and post it on the bulletin board in the room with some I believe in you type posters, and just as a reminder. And then at the end of the year, we do another one to show how much they've grown.
That's great.
I think there's such a connection between social emotional learning and growth mindset. And it feels like that's more of what we are having to do as educators, more than we've ever had to in the past. But it's so important if we really want our students to succeed.
Well, now that we have those SEL standards, definitely, we do have to take more time with that.
I think through prayer requests and listening to what the kids have to say and what's important to them and what they're worried about really helps build a relationship that you can talk to them afterwards in private or just bring it up in other classes. It really helps them feel like they're being listened to.
And we are Catholic schools.
I make it an attempt to go to the CYO basketball games, boys and girls. And they really, the students really appreciate it, and you get to meet the parents at a different level and at a different time in a different zone.
That's great. Okay, I'm gonna keep going here. So we talked about parents and how important it is to get parents on board with this. And these are just some ideas of ways that you can start to build that relationship with parents as far as getting them to understand this whole idea of growth mindset and how you're trying to incorporate it into your classroom. I'm not going to read through them. Again, you can do that. But I think every contact you have with parents, especially if growth mindset is something you're going to focus on next year, I think it's important to bring that up with parents. Talk to parents about how, do you see your students struggling on homework, and, saying, making sure they know that that's good if they are struggling, and talking about that growth. When you have parent conferences, rather than just going through the grades, go through what growth are you seeing? Pull out the data. Are you seeing growth in their reading levels? Are you, whatever subject you teach, where are you seeing the growth? And focusing on the growth and not on the grades, I think is really important. And there's just a lot of different, different technology you can use for this. You could do parent surveys. You could have the kids share more with, their parents. Encourage your students to create a presentation to go home and share their learning at home. That would be really neat. Or when you're going over growth mindset, have the students, do some type of activity, and they have to go about growth mindset and what it is to them. And then they have to go home and share that with your parents. The more you can get this idea of growth mindset out there, the better. And maybe have a conversation with your principal that this is something you're doing in your classroom. And, maybe if he or she has opportunities that they can incorporate some growth mindset into their communications home. So these are just some ideas with parents. Any comments on this?
I have one. Yes, I know that calling parents can be scary and intimidating, but one former principal said, you can't be chicken. And that really stuck with me. And my current principal challenged us to make a positive phone call each week.
Yes, definitely. It is interesting because I have found that with email, it does seem to make it easier to communicate with parents. And, I always found that a lot of my teachers chose to communicate through email, which as a principal, I never communicated through email. I always called home. Unless it was like a simple thing, they send you an email and it's a simple question. But like any discipline issues or areas of concern, I always called home. So just something to think about. I think sometimes teachers get dependent on email, and that doesn't really form these relationships that we really want. I realize it's a time saver, so I do get that, but I think this suggestion, Bob, that you said of making one positive phone call a week, it's amazing then how parents talk to each other. Somebody's not muted out there about prescriptions. Oh. Okay, there we go. What was I saying now? I totally lost my train of thought. Oh, the positive phone call, because then it's amazing how parents will talk, and that helps your credibility as a teacher also. It's amazing the wonders that does. Okay, so on to December. December is the idea of challenge, how important it is for students to be challenged. And some of the things that it's recommended you do is you teach the students the difference between equity and equality, and we'll talk about that in a minute, and develop strategies to challenge all your students. High expectations is very key, and differentiation is very, very important to ensure equity. So equity versus equality, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I realize you probably know this, but you know, no longer is it best practice to give all students in your class the same work. If you do that, guaranteed, there are students in that class that is not a developmentally appropriate learning challenge for them. They're either significantly below grade level, and that's not an appropriate level for them, or they're students that are above that. And I know that a lot of our teachers are still doing this. But the more you can incorporate, you know, different reading groups, group work, giving students choice, voice and choice into their work, and the less that you're just giving out one assignment for the whole class, the better. So this idea of equity versus equality, and I would actually take a class and teach them the difference between equity and equality because they need to understand this. So like, here's some examples. The teacher gives a student who didn't get breakfast a granola bar. Just yell it out, unmute your microphones for me. Is that equity or equality? Maybe we're not sure.
Equity.
Okay.
Equity.
It's equity.
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 Okay. Thank you. Okay, yes, that's equity. Okay. I gotta get my readers on. All students get a sticker as a reward for participating in a game.
Equality.
Equality.
Okay, you get it. I'm not gonna go through. So basically giving all the students the same thing, that's equality. But equity is giving students what they need. Giving students what they need. What they need to be successful. I guess I should finish that off. So, you know, you probably have seen this diagram of equality versus equity. Equality is giving them all the same height box. Well, obviously that doesn't help them all to be successful. The same with this picture. Equality is giving them all the same size box, but again, that doesn't ensure that they're all successful. The one I really like is this one because it's different, because in the past examples, it was kind of like this idea of a taller box, or, you know, giving them more is better. And it's not necessarily the idea of more, it's giving them what they need. So in this example of equity, you know, it's not just giving them different size bikes, it's giving them the bike that they need. So I'm not gonna go into that too much. I know you already know that. There's a great lesson plan in this book of equity versus equality, because it's important for students to understand, you know, why did you just give that student a granola bar? If they don't understand the idea of equity versus equality, they will think that you're being unfair and showing favoritism. This is just a checklist that you can refer to later on because, you know, like we said, December is challenge. So this is just a little checklist you can go through to think about the work that you're giving and if it's giving the students a challenge. You know, are all students engaged in the work? Are they encouraged to take a risk? Are there, is there supports available when they encounter difficulty? Do the students see the value in their work? Relevance, you know, relevance, that's a big topic now, relevance. How will you know if the students grasp the concepts? What will you do for those who do and don't? Those are PLC questions. So just some things to think about when you're creating work for your students. And these are just some strategies for differentiation. You know, this isn't really a differentiation, so session, so I'm going to go through these super quick, but just some ideas of differentiation so that you are giving all students the appropriate challenge. Here's some strategies for the struggling learner. And again, I'm sure this is nothing new to you. And then personalized learning, this is kind of a big trendy topic right now, is this idea of personalization. And, there's different ways you could do that. This 20% of the time you allow students to work on passion projects where they decide what they're going to work on. They do the research, they do the designing, whatever it is that they want to do. So the 20% of the time is for them to pick and choose what they want to work on. Genius hour, where you can allot 1 hour a week for individual pursuits. Some schools are kind of doing this as far as the whole school-wide schedule, where they're building in a block where students can spend time with different enrichment type of activities. So I've seen it that way. And then inquiry-based learning, where the student's in the driver's seat and can, kind of figure out the course of their learning. So these are just some different personalized learning ideas, approaches that you could take. That again, the idea is that it's challenging the students. Okay, so I'm not going to ask these specific questions, but anybody out there that have really good ideas for setting high expectations, differentiation? Do any of you do some type of personalized learning? Anything anybody wants to share?
When I teach my junior high, I have like a 7th grade orchestration class where it's all xylophones, and 8th grade I have a strings class where they do dulcimer and guitars. I don't tell them when we're going to assess the end song when we're done. I just keep asking them, how much more time do you need? How close are we? Are you close? Are you there? Do we need another week? And I let them pick basically their test day so that everybody's going to be able to play their part successfully.
That's great. And I would even encourage you to take it a step further. And if there's someone that still doesn't have it by test day, that you give them even more time after that to work on it and maybe come back and show you they can do it.
Right. Absolutely.
That's great. That's great. Anyone else? Okay. Oh, go ahead.
No, I just want to say I really like that idea. That's the first time I've heard of intervention blocks and enrichment intervention, giving kids what they need, built into the school day or the school week. But I really like that 20% of their time. I mean, I can think of lots of different ways to incorporate that into, language arts, or being something that's set up for the week, that the kids know that's the expectation and there's some kind of finished product that's due at the end of the week, and making them more accountable for their own learning and integrating their choices. Really like that idea. I'm wondering how many teachers are utilizing that.
My guess would be not many.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that time is the problem. Where do you find the time? But I wonder if you look at your graded course of study and you maybe pick some topics out of that just to get the students, in a general ballpark of what they're going to be learning, and then let them run away with it, so at least hopefully still, that they're learning about things that you're going to be teaching them. But yeah, I understand time. Time is usually the number one excuse for that. But I agree. I think it would be wonderful to do. And maybe it's not 20%, because that does sound like a lot. 10%, even just giving them some time to just work on what they want to learn. Again, that voice and choice. Okay, so January is all about feedback, and I'm keeping my eye on the clock here because I don't want to run. I definitely won't let you leave on time, but I want to try to make sure I get through. I think we have time for this, so I'm going to go ahead and play this. Not too long. So again, January is feedback.
So check this out. Carol Dweck and her colleagues wanted to look into the impacts that praise had on children's development. So what they did is they took over 400 fifth grade students from all across the nation, and they did a really simple yet interesting study. Here's how it went down. They gave all the kids a really easy nonverbal IQ test. There were 10 questions, and at the end of the test, they praised all the children in one of two ways. The first group was praised for their intelligence. So they said, "Wow, great job, you must be really smart at this." Now the second group was praised for their effort. So they said, "Wow, great job, you must have worked really hard at this." Now this is a really subtle difference, but the impact it had is incredible. So after praising the kids and getting them divided up into the two groups, they gave them all an option for their next test. The first option was, hey, this next test is going to be a little bit harder, but it's going to be a great opportunity to learn and grow. Now the second option was, this next test will be similar to the first and you will surely do well on it. Now the interesting thing is, out of the group that was praised for their intelligence, 67% of them chose the easier option, while 92% of the kids who were praised for their effort chose the harder test. This is unbelievable to think about, how just the subtle difference in the way that they were praised had such an impact. Carol Dweck explains why this happens.
Child or adult hears, "Oh, you think I'm brilliant and talented. That's why you admire me. That's why you value me. I better not do anything that will disprove this evaluation." As a result, they enter a fixed mindset, they play it safe in the future, and they limit the growth of their talents. Whereas focusing on the strategies they use, the way they're stretching themselves and taking on hard tasks, the intense practice they're doing, those are the kinds of things that say to a child or an older athlete, it's about the process of growth. As a result, they don't feel, oh, if I make a mistake, you won't think I'm talented. They think, oh, if I don't take on hard things and stick to them, I'm not going to grow.
Next, Dweck and her colleagues gave all the kids a really difficult test. It was one that they would surely fail, but they wanted to look at how the different kids attacked this challenge. Dweck noticed that the group that was praised for effort worked harder, longer, and actually enjoyed this test more than the group that was praised for their intelligence. This group got really frustrated with this test and had the tendency to give up early. After this artificially induced failure round, all of the kids were given a third and final test. Now this test was the same level of difficulty as the first one, but check out the results. The group that was praised for their intelligence actually did worse on this test than the first one. Their average score actually dropped by 20%, while the group that was praised for their effort did significantly better, raising their average score by nearly 30%. This is a 50% difference in performance that was caused by a few subtle differences in the way that they were praised. This study shows how praise can either make or break a child's development. I mean, we all do it. We all want to be positive with the children we work with, so teachers, coaches, parents are always looking for ways to support their kids and tend to praise them quite a bit. So we need to look at research like this and realize, okay, praise is a good thing and there's nothing wrong with being positive, but we need to be very careful about praising someone's intelligence or abilities and focus more on the process and the effort that they put forth. I think this is a pretty easy fix that will help us develop growth mindsets within the kids that we work with. And as all the research shows, having a growth mindset has a big time impact on the development of a child, whether it's on the court, in the classroom, or just in life. Thanks so much for following along and watching this video. For more like this, visit championshipbasketballschool.com and click on the championship newsletter. We'll see you next week. Thanks, guys.
thoughts on that? Was that a new concept for some of you? The idea of praising the process and the effort rather than the work, the ability?
My partner teacher spoke earlier about Ready Math, the program that we use. And in that series, she discussed how they try a problem and we compare it with our partners and we start asking questions and we celebrate the oops. We celebrate the mistakes that they made, and the mistakes actually teach us more about the math problem than the correct answer. And it takes a while for children in second grade because they want, it's black and white. I want to be right, wrong. But when you do that in every aspect of the curriculum and build on those oops and praise them for the effort that they put into their work instead of getting the right answer, it makes a huge difference. And we saw it just after the first year. Our second graders take the COGATs, and in years prior, we would have students who would cry, high anxiety during these COGATs. Just after 1 year of this math program, and then we later, we're now doing Ready Writing as well. We saw kids saying, I can do this. I've never seen this before, but I can try. And they were literally saying out loud during the COGAT, this is hard, I'll try, I'll give it a try. And we saw just within 1 year, the change in our students. And as we have continued to teach this program, and now it's starting at kindergarten, they are more willing to take those challenges and to stumble and to fall, but it has to be nurtured as well. And it has, because there's always still that fear of being wrong and having your peers laugh at you, or having, them not think that you're the best. And this prior year, we did have a lot of competitive students, and trying to almost coach that out of them, that it's not, we're not here to win the gold. We're here to learn and to make those steps with one another. So it is still a trying process, but again, in every aspect, saying you took the challenge, this oops is really teaching us more about the problem or the writing or what have you, than if you would have known the problem right away, and that productive struggles there.
Julie, that's fantastic. You're going to have all these teachers running to their principals. Can we get Ready Math? No, it is a program that the Catholic Schools Office here has been putting out there for principals to start to look at and consider adopting. So I think it is an excellent program. Okay, so, just thinking about then your feedback to the students, and what's a better way to praise them. Again, try to praise the process and the effort rather than, the actual person praise, like you're smart or you did a really good job with this. Just really try to keep the focus on the process and the effort. And again, process critique rather than a person critique, specific praise rather than vague praise. I know that you all know that, like instead of great job writing a detailed essay. You have to be very specific so they know exactly what they did a good job on. And again, focus on effort and the process. Praise should be timely, specific. It should give the student idea of where to go next. And this is something a lot of times we give feedback. And so we give them critiques on what they've already done, but we don't take that next step of, okay, now where do you go next? Or in other words, instead of feedback, feed forward. And I bought a few books that I'm gonna try to read and put some PowerPoints together for next summer on this idea. But, feedback and critique's great, but you need to make sure that they need to know where to go next. It doesn't stop there. What's the next step? Okay, so that's January. Moving right along, February is goals. And there's a lot in here about goals, distinguishing between performance goals and learning goals. They also talk about the idea of grit, or I say they encourage you as the teacher in February to talk about the idea of grit, with some different examples. And so you probably have all seen this video. Michael Jordan, and many of you have commented on this.
I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed. I've failed over and over and over again in my life. And that is why I succeed.
Wow, that's powerful, especially for kids that look up to Michael Jordan. But there's so many other ideas. And that's why I forget who it was, I apologize, but you talked about the learning centers, and you have the kids with the famous figures, or I forget what you called it, but it was the teacher versus teacher, paid teacher, whatever. But, here's all these kind of examples of you could have centers set up with these different people and for them to do a little research on these people and to see, yes, they did fail, but at the end they succeeded. So, I'm sure that you're incorporating probably one or two of these folks into your curriculum at some point.
If I may
Yes.
say just one thing about the word grit. And it has to do honestly with like BIPOC children, is that they don't need to build that because based on their family histories and their lives, they already have grit. It's just giving them opportunity.
Interesting.
The opportunity to show their ability rather than to build that idea of grit. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
So, and it's not anything about the program or anything like that. It's just, one thing that I've been doing myself is a little bit of self-study, particularly about, children's educational experience based on their race, and myself being multiracial it's something that is important in, today's education as well, I think.
Great. Thank you for sharing that. So as far as goals, performance goals versus learning goals, the performance goal is just getting the A, and that's what we need to get students away from, but rather the learning goal of being able to speak French or being able to do whatever it is. This is just kind of a structure that can be used for goals, and I'm going to advance it here real quick because it's important for you to think about your classroom. And is your classroom more performance oriented or is it more learning oriented? So for example, the tasks, are they too easy and they don't really engage the students, or are they challenging and at the proper level for students and high interest and offer choice and variety? If so, you can see where you would fall. So go through this, and I want you to think about you as the teacher in your classroom, and think about where you would fall in which column your classroom would fall for each of these different things. And does anybody want to share any thoughts about this? Or a way to make your classroom more learning oriented?
I have a question.
Sure.
The grouping homogeneous versus heterogeneous. I'm not really sure why one is performance and one is learning. Can anybody help me understand that?
I think the idea is the homogeneous groups, if you're giving all of the students the same work, that's performance oriented because you're not giving them the work that is developmentally appropriate for them, that's challenging for them. Versus a heterogeneous group, the idea then is that you're giving the work according to the group's abilities and so that you're challenging all your students. That's the thinking behind this. This is not to say that you can't do homogeneous groups. The key is, are you challenging all of your students at the correct level? Does that make sense? I guess so.
Yeah. Don't you feel like it's I think a nice way to begin with this is to just pick a few things. Like I find every year, I will admit my classroom climate is probably more performance oriented right now, but that doesn't mean I'm not shifting that way. And that doesn't mean that I don't, try to integrate some things that are learning oriented. And when I think back on the activities that I thought were really successful, the ones that made the kids go, "Aw," when it was time to clean up and finish up, they were the ones that were more learning oriented. And I think there's a place to put both things. I think if, you can't just be one thing totally.
Correct.
Like there are times but I think we put more emphasis on the performance, like that big test at the end, being ready for the big test, as opposed to quick things, quick checks that really check and make sure and tell us as an educator whether their individual kids are learning and making progress.
Yes.
And I think we all educators need to move away from those big high stakes end of the unit and more confidence. These kids have the skills or they've learned this. And even though they're still working on this, I feel like 80% of them at least can go on to this and so forth and so on.
Yeah, and Susan, that's very true. And you're all here, which tells me all of you have a growth mindset because you know that you can improve. And so when you look at this, I don't mean to give you this list to, discourage you or make you think you're not doing a great job. It's just to hopefully inspire you to do better. Growth mindset, learn and grow. That's what it's all about.
I feel like the evaluation piece is so tricky for me as a kindergarten teacher, and all teachers, I'm sure, across the board. But because we have to meet these standards and we have to assess these standards, my biggest struggle is how to evaluate them in a learning-based way. I feel like it's all very performance-based. Now, I give the recognition if they've done better on one particular assessment than they did maybe a few weeks prior, but this probably isn't the time, but I would love to learn more about how to do that differentiated evaluation with that growth mindset in mind. I don't know if anybody has any quick ideas here, but I think that's my biggest struggle with that whole Target acronym.
What's your first name? E. I have an E.
Oh, sorry, Emily.
Emily. Do you guys have ideas for Emily? Well, I do. To give other people a chance to share first. Emily, do you have an aide?
Yes, we do.
Okay. Does your aide spend time individually with students and trying to see where they are individually as far as like your kindergarten, right?
Yes, and absolutely she does.
Okay, so right there.
Assessments.
Okay, so right there you're doing it. And so then you know where each student is. And then you're probably, my guess is trying to reach each student where they are and help them continue from there. So you probably are doing it more than you realize.
When you put it that way, yes, thank you.
Something with kindergarten, you can do like letter tracking sheets where students track, what letters they know, what sounds they know, and things like that, so that you know what level they're at, they know what level they're at, and they need to know what to work on. I mean, that's all a part of this whole growth mindset and differentiation.
Okay, well, we're doing that. So that's good. That makes me feel better. I guess I'm thinking more like when we finish a unit or a particular concept, everybody is assessed in the same way. I don't have expectations that are all the same for each student, obviously. And like I said, I still will point out their growth to their parents and themselves. Like,
Well, yeah,
I'm so proud of you, you've improved. But the assessment is still.
Yeah, I don't expect you to give 28 different assessments. That's a very good point. But I think it's more of the formative assessments. So maybe it's some of you actually observing the students, some of that anecdotal assessment that you're probably doing that's not the summative assessment, if that makes sense.
It absolutely does. Thank you. I
Okay.
feel
Good.
like I'm on top of the world now.
Good.
One of the
Go ahead.
One of the difficulties is, though, at least on the junior high and high school level, is that we as teachers are assessed on their, not necessarily their progress, but on their level, so I'm assessed on how many are on grade level or above grade level versus how many have grown and things like that, whether or not it's the state test or, the Iowas and things like that.
And that's unfortunate, because I think there is a shift, and I assume that's maybe coming from your principal. I'd like to think that some of the principals, that shift is starting to occur, that it's not about the grades, it's about the growth. The MAP test is a really good example of this for the schools that use the NWEA MAP. It's about looking at the students' reading and math growth. Did they attain that 1 year of growth? This is also can be done with the Iowa testing. Did students make their 1 year of growth? So I hope that you're gradually seeing your principals shift from grades to growth. And again, just like it's a growth mindset with students, with teachers, it is with principals also. So I'm hoping that that's something you'll see, if you're not seeing that already from your principal, is more of a focus on growth. Okay.
Well, and it also seems that with growth and mastery come the grades.
Yes, definitely. Because they build up that self-confidence and they have this belief like, yes, I can do this. Definitely.
And I
okay,
see,
so
one more thing,
Yes.
I see what you're starting to do now, I think, with your Zoom from last week, that if I move to performance and learning goals, and in the music classroom, and you go into small groups, how important classroom management is. And that's where I get frustrated and say, everybody get back to the center. And you just have to have control of that classroom.
You're exactly right, Bob. I couldn't have said it better myself. Okay, so March, we got to keep moving here. I know we're starting to run out of time. So March is that you look at mistakes as opportunities for learning. And many of you have said this about celebrating mistakes and normalizing mistakes and errors. And that is so important. And that's what you really kind of talk about in March. So, there's different ways to recognize the value of mistakes, normalize / celebrate mistakes. Make sure students understand that they are going to make mistakes. That's okay. You still love them. Mistakes will help them learn. Mistake language that you can use. Great mistake. And I'm going to show you a great video for this. But use that language. Oh, that's a great mistake you made there. And show other students. And celebrate that mistake so that you don't make the same mistake, hopefully, again in the future. Mistake mechanics. This is just an analogy you could use. When you have a breakdown or a mistake, you have to open the hood, which is the mind. You have to figure out what went wrong, and you come up with a strategy to fix the car or the mistake. So any kind of, way you can make this easier for students to understand, the better. So let me play this. I don't know, I'm not going to play the whole thing because it's a longer video, but I want to play the beginning because this is a great video. And if somebody can be putting the URLs, if you find this in the chat, that would be great.
Hi, my name is Leah Alcala. I teach 8th grade math, and this is my warm-up routine that I do with my students almost every day. I call it my favorite no. Okay. Good morning, you guys. Your warm-up is on the board. I'm going to hand out your index cards. I put a warm-up problem on the board, hand out index cards to all the kids, have them write their answer. I collect it, and then I sort it, and I say yes, no, yes, no. And I look for my favorite wrong answer or my favorite no, and we analyze that. 4 minutes to work on it.
I'm gonna speed it up. Well, I think she talks.
Everyone makes mistakes. We're gonna see your mistakes, you're gonna see my mistakes. But a mistake is your opportunity to share with me how much you understand. And if I don't know that you don't know something, I need to teach you before the test. The test is too late. And this is a great spot for me to teach you. Make sure your name is on your card. Put your pencil in your pencil slot and pass your cards to the center. I started my warm-up routine to replace clickers that a lot of classes are buying. So that was a clicker for each student. You ask a question, they lock in an answer. And then you look at your computer screen and you know what percentage of your students understand the problem. Well, we didn't have the money for that, so instead, okay, here we go. I thought, well, what if I gave everyone index cards, collected them real quick with their answers already written on it, and then I can just sort them as quick as possible and find out what percentage of my kids know the answer. No, yes. Costs 40 cents instead of $15,000. Yes, so we have quite a few yeses and some very interesting no's. 1, 2, 3. I then took that a step further, something I couldn't do with clickers. 7. Look at the ones who are getting it wrong. How far are they from getting it right? And showing that work to the other kids. Okay, my favorite no. Someone wrote this. I say it's my favorite no because I want the kids to first of all recognize what they're about to see is wrong. And I want them to recognize that there's something good in the problem. Like there's a mistake, but it's my favorite no because it showed some good math. So that's the wrong answer. But they did some things that I love. What in that problem am I happy to see? We always talk about what's right first, so that if it's any student's work, they are like, oh, I did do that right. There's a mistake, but the mistake didn't ruin the whole thing. What do I like about this problem? Gavin?
Well, they distributed both with the 4x and the -2.
Very nice. And what? Today's lesson was on factoring, so I needed to make sure they understood how to distribute. They distributed, and what lets you know that they distributed? David?
How there are no more parentheses.
There are no more parentheses, and they didn't just drop the parentheses.
Okay, we're gonna fast forward.
Distributing
it a little
-2 to
bit.
is positive 12. And that was one mistake I was absolutely looking for and I did not see, which made me very happy. Not until the very end, as we've gone over different sections of the problem that are right, that I will then ask, okay, now what is incorrect? What does this person not understand? Where's the mistake? If I get a third of my class raising their hand, ready to tell me the mistake, it's pretty high engagement at that point. Mia?
Like 4x times 2x equals 8x squared.
Very nice. This 4x times 2x multiplies to 8x squared. Can someone convince me of that? How do we know that 4x times 2x is 8x
You get the idea.
My low-level students are very engaged. They feel like they're not getting penalized for being wrong. They're not being made fun of. I'm not looking at them. There's no peer pressure at this point. But they're like, wow, that's my mistake. And now I understand. It's very comforting. I mean, I feel very with.
Okay, I think you get the idea, but what a great way to do that. And that's kind of somewhat similar to what the two ladies were saying about iReady, kind of that same idea. And then the third way is to coach students through that setback, through that mistake. You know, what can you do? And here's just some ideas that you can incorporate. You know, ask 3 and then ask me. They have to ask 3 students, or maybe you only say 2 before you. Maybe you start to ask them some open-ended questions to try to provoke that problem solving from them. Obviously, you don't want to just jump in and tell them how to do that. That's not going to help at all. You need them to struggle with it. Struggle is productive. Reflection journals give them times to reflect on their learning and what they failed. Pre-reflection activities where they can think about obstacles before the learning happens. You know, how difficult do you think this lesson's going to be on a scale of 1 to 5? And they hold up fingers. Use the mistake as part of the learning, just like this teacher did, where you can use that for all the other students. So give students, you know, strategies to get through those mistakes. And I'm not going to go through these, but I tell you, great analogy to use with kids is this whole video game idea. You know, you talk about with video games, they have to beat a level. So there's this challenge, you know, they don't want to give up. They want to be challenged and they want to get to that level. You know, they'll brag about, oh, I spent 5 hours on that level to try to get through. Like, they brag about that. That's a good thing. They celebrate that. And we need to get them to do that in school. Video games, there's a lot of choice with that. You know, they can pick their car they want to use, or I know, of course, you can tell I'm like the older video games, but you know what I mean? They can pick, there's an element of choice in that. Embrace the differences, you know, where the students can master different levels in different ways. And that's a good thing. Motivation, they're always so motivated to play video games. And so we want that motivation to happen in school. Okay, so I'm gonna stop, but no, I'm not gonna stop because these are so good. Cheats. You know how on video games you can go in and read cheats on how to conquer a level? You know, teachers could think about giving little tips, little cheats to how to accomplish something. Feedback. In a video game, you get constant feedback. You're dying or you're getting star rewards or whatever the case may be. You know, and teachers need to give that feedback to help them with the next step. Scaffolding. We know there's scaffolding involved with video games. They get harder as you play. The same thing with our students. Hopefully we're building scaffolding into it and they're advancing their skills. Competition, I mean, it's a great analogy that you can use with your students to get them to get this video game mentality and bring it into the classroom. Any questions on that? Maybe we'll spend 2 minutes. Anything you guys do to celebrate mistakes that you'd love to share with your colleagues and help other people to get some great ideas?
I often make mistakes in the classroom because sometimes I speak before I think. And I will, number one, I will apologize to them. I say it all the time. I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm only human. I do make mistakes. So I verbalize at least once a day how I made a mistake or something that I did that I could have done better. And then they look at me as an adult and thinking, oh, wait, like the teacher that I think sleeps at school, like she can make a mistake. And then I talk about how, you know, maybe I'll do it better next time, or maybe I shouldn't do it at this time, just something really small, even in the classroom or out of the classroom. And then they realize, oh, adults make mistakes too. Yes.
Right. Great.
I do the same thing. I make mistakes all the time and they catch them. I'm like, well, thanks for catching it and showing me my mistake. I appreciate that. I apologize. If they ask me a question I don't know the answer to, I said I will get back with them on that. And the other thing I do with math is I actually have a slide that I do where we're practicing subtraction with regrouping, because that seems to be where they mess up a lot on. And I actually have some of the common mistakes and errors in there, and I have them try to find the mistakes of the things that I did. And sometimes I even have them go up and be the teacher and explain what they would do and how they would do the problem and explain it to the class.
That's great. Any other ideas? Okay. April is this idea of yet, and I saw that some of you put this in the word cloud, yet, not yet. So it's this idea that, you know, it's okay if you don't learn something yet. Kind of like Kathy was talking about with the recorders. I don't know what the instrument was. I apologize, Kathy. But, you know, maybe they don't know it yet, and she'll allow them maybe to come back and play it for her. So the more that you can encourage students to realize that just because, you know, maybe this unit's over, hopefully you as a teacher are maybe giving them opportunities to still come back and show you that they've mastered a concept, you know, these formative assessments. You know, it's interesting. I had a conversation with a principal the other day, and she was talking about a teacher who just grades really, really hard. And it was interesting because, you know, we talked about, you know, does the teacher approach assessment as more summative where, you know, one and done, it's done, move on? Or is it more formative where, you know, the students achieve a certain grade and then you encourage them, okay, now give them some feed forward so they know where to go to next and come back and show you that they have mastered that. So this idea of yet is just, it's key for students. And there's a whole bunch of ideas here on what you can use for this idea of yet to get them, still give them opportunities to show their understanding or their mastery of a concept. And this idea of moving students from knowledgeable to knowledge able is huge also, you know. And I know many of you are out there, and I'm sure you do a lot of these things that it's in the curriculum, so you do that. But like, for example, rather than memorizing the state capitals, I don't know if that's in the curriculum or not, or if that's just something we always did, but rather than students memorizing the state capitals, have them produce a documentary or a PowerPoint about a state capital, and then they share. Because, you know, this is probably terrible that I'm saying this, but a lot of what students learn, they can just Google in 3 seconds, you know? So it's the idea of taking it beyond that and applying that to something else that's more meaningful, that makes them knowledge able. Rather than labeling the diagram of an insect life cycle, have them film a video of a day in the life of an insect. Rather than figure out the area of a playground, design a playground. Rather than tell about how a bill becomes a law, design a mock legislative session to demonstrate how a bill becomes a law. You get the idea. And I know that I'm really kind of challenging you guys on this one, but you know, think about that. Even if you take one thing next year where rather than just doing the learning, the very basic level understanding, you take it a step further, incorporate more higher, level thinking into it, and it becomes some type of project or activity that will really expand them. Any questions on April? Any ideas for April? This idea of yet, or moving from knowledgeable to knowledge able? Are you ready to shoot the messenger? We're all good. Okay, we're almost done. May, I got this. So in May, you really need to talk about, students need to think about their self-talk and how they're operating. Are they, fixed mindset? Are they growth mindset? How, if I find myself in a fixed mindset, how can I get out of that? And just managing that self-talk. If they notice they're operating in a fixed mindset, maybe they say, you know, get lost. Role playing different mindsets, different skits that you can do to explain the difference between growth and fixed. Accountability partners, where if they, you know, if a partner notices that you're operating in a fixed mindset, they kind of say, hey, that sounds like a fixed mindset to me. You'd be amazed at how students will really do this if this is the, you know, the theme and the focus of the classroom. Drawing, you know, mindsets for your more artistic students, catchphrases, I got this, you know, and it was Kathy, I think, I love a challenge. That's a catchphrase that she uses with her students that they really, and then they'll be in other classes and they'll start to use that terminology. Letters, if they like to write, they could write a letter to their fixed mindset from their growth mindset. You know, just anything you can do to have them reflect about their own mindsets and that they can do it. They can operate on a growth mindset. And then June, obviously this is you really. I mean, it is the kids too, but you know, you can't take care of others if you don't take care of yourself, especially with you guys and the year that you've been through. But, you know, and I hope you're doing that this June, but I hope you're doing this, and ask your students to reflect on their year of growth. And, you know, what did you learn from this year? How can you improve, you know, it to next year? What can you do better? And really taking that time to think about it. I realize you're not with them, but that could be one of those last day activities where you don't really know what to do, and you talk about, okay, maybe you pull out some kind of activity where you reflect on the year and what can you do better next year. And then July, this is just really more you, where you kind of start to shift into learning mode, which all of you have shifted into learning mode in June, but you know, hopefully that's the idea, that you're continuing to grow throughout the summer. And I would just say to all of you that you got this. And especially the fact that you're here tells me that you're interested in this. I hope hearing your colleagues talk that it was inspirational for you, and I hope you really got a lot of good ideas. But if you want to continue this idea, you can go to this growthmindsetcoach.com. If you just Google growth mindset, there are a ton of resources out there that you can use. And then I just want to give you my contact information. If I can ever do anything for you, you know, I am available. Feel free to call my cell. I didn't give you my work number because I really just use my cell. I would love to hear success stories from all of you, like, hey, I tried this and you know, it really worked. And I mean, that would just make my day. So, you know, I ask you to kind of keep in contact. I'd love to hear back from you and just hear about the good things that are happening in your classroom with growth mindset, and even sharing ideas with me, because then if I present this again in the future, again, growth mindset, I want to make it better, I can share it, you know, with other folks. Okay, so how'd we do? We did pretty darn good on time. I was getting a little worried there. I do just want to, you know, thank you for joining. Does anybody want to just share something, you know, just something you really got out of this, something you want to take back to your school and try? Just any final thoughts?
I'll go. I already have like a bell ringer type of thing, and I really love that my favorite no.
Good.
I have big stars all around it. I'm definitely going to be doing that. My favorite no. It's just this something I'm already doing, but coming at it at a different way that I really like, and I'm going to do.
Great. Great. Okay, well, I'm sure you probably already know about my other sessions because you signed up for this one, but tomorrow I am doing developing assessment capable learners, which I'm really excited about. There are 6 steps to developing assessment capable learners. Well, I'm not going to give you a preview. Hopefully you're signed up to come and watch. And then next Monday is teacher credibility and collective teacher efficacy. So, and like I said earlier, more about that teacher credibility, confidence, trust, all of that. So I hope to see you again. Thank you so much for your time. You will get 0.3 free CEUs, so look for that on your Educata data center. I know, because there really haven't been any opportunities this year for CEUs with COVID. So that's another reason why we really wanted to do this. So thank you, everyone. Go have a wonderful day, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow or next week. Take care. Stay in touch.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Did you send the link out for tomorrow already? Thank you.
Diane Hungler should have. Did you not get it, Kath?
No, I did not.
Okay, let me go and make sure she sends it to you. Give me your email address.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Lynn K.
Okay.
At olv-school.org.
Okay.
And I'm also doing Mondays. I don't know if you sent Mondays yet.
I would think she has. Yeah,
This one came so early, and then I didn't get any more. So that's
maybe
what I was
she
worried
has.
about.
Gosh, I hope she has. Okay, I'll
I
check with
haven't
her.
gotten it yet either.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna go right to her now after this is done and get that sent out. We'll get it to you. Who else said that, just in case she has? Chrissy, did you say that? Oh, she's gone. I think that was Chrissy that said that. Okay, I'll make sure I get it to you.
I think that might be true for me too. I got the one about this one.
Okay.
And I was signed up for several.
So not the one tomorrow. She was on vacation last week, so I wonder if maybe she was just planning on sending it today.
Right.
Kind of late. Yeah, okay. We'll get that out.
All right, thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
I was just going to go back and watch these chats, or to read through these chats. So if you need to exit, you can just click the leave or end down below. You should see that in the bottom right corner. Hey, you're fine. I'm just reading chats. That's why I look like I'm like.
I guess I shouldn't go to Sharon. I'm gonna make faces at her.
It would have been okay.
She's for nothing.
I know, that's funny. Hmm. Ooh, yeah. Ready to use resources for mindsets and